Hello, hello. How is everybody doing tonight? We are here with you in the Action Lab on a Wednesday night. We made it to Hump Day. You know, every time we make it to Hump Day, Scotty, I know I'm excited for the show. I'm excited to get in tune with everything that's going on in the sports world and all of our lab rats out there in the community. And it's like halfway through the week, so it feels that much better.
Yeah, no, it's been a crazy week for me at work, and it'll continue the rest of the week. But it feels good to get to join the Action Lab tonight and talk some sports. We got a lot to go over, a lot of fun stuff. We're diving back into the NFL a little more than we have recently, as some things have come up in the news finally after a little break with the NFL. So we'll get cracking back at that.
Absolutely. And you will notice that Scotty looks a little different today. I don't know what it is. Is it maybe a clean shave, new hat?
It's not a new hat, and I did shave today.
Okay. Well, then
I had a bit of I'd like, as good of a beard as I could grow going into today, and I decided to shave this morning. But
maybe it's the fact that you have some colors going on in the background there. You have this little aesthetics. I'm loving it, man. Looking good.
Some lights. We had some complaints on my volume with the mic, and I'm like, I have the same mic as Chris, so just got a little something that'll allow it to get a little closer. So if you couldn't hear me before, I apologize that you're gonna have to hear me now.
Yeah, you'll have to hear all of Scott's Kansas City Chiefs takes left and right. So sorry about that. That's why we have a mute button here. So if we need to, we could just, say it's his mic and just go with that.
I just learned that you can mute me?
I can mute you if I need to.
Oh, man. I don't think you've done that yet. And that's actually surprising. I would have muted myself a few times.
No, we definitely won't unless you get crazy with it. But I don't think that's gonna happen. But for all of you guys in the Twitch stream who were with us since the very beginning, begging Scotty to put something back there going on, you have your all of your wishes have been granted. You have a plant and you got some color and some different things going on. It's looking fantastic.
We'll get some things on the wall eventually. But baby steps. After the last show, right after the last show, I ordered this stuff on Amazon. I'm like, enough is enough. We gotta mix it up here. So
you got to crawl before you can walk, right? And
Yep.
hey, I'm loving it. Lot going on in the world of sports. Hope you guys are all enjoying your week. We are here, as far as everything goes. We are here on 3 streams, 3 different platforms. We're multi-streaming to Facebook, to Twitch, and to YouTube. So we are all over the place here. You can catch us on all those different platforms. So if you're catching us on one of those, hit your follow buttons. Make sure that you're getting in and understanding when we're going live with those notifications, because those are always important. Lauren in the Facebook chat. This looks amazing, Scott. Great work. Wink face. So obviously we're still working through our bugs on the Facebook chat coming through on our stream, but those will hopefully be done soon. But I'm still reading everything that's coming through on Facebook, so we want to see your comments. Even though you're not seeing them on our stream here, we're in the works of getting that fixed. I know I sound like a broken record. I say it every week, but we're going to, I promise. So Lauren, thanks for the love for Scotty here.
And right now it's a nice feature because I can't see the Facebook chat. So if anyone wants to like private chat with Chris and like talk shit on me or something, that's your avenue. That's your avenue right there. So
you just sent all of your Twitch buddies over to Facebook, and they're gonna do some talking trash on you from here on out now. So you get what you wish for there, Scotty.
That's fair.
Well, yeah, I second what Lauren has to say. She says it looks good, and hey, loving every minute of it. So we're streaming on all 3 platforms. Glad you're here with us, wherever you're joining us, however you are, on your phone, on your laptop, on your desktop. We're glad you're here. So appreciate you coming in, and we want to hear what you guys have to say. So throw in your comments, anything you want to talk about, and we will cover it here live. So let's go ahead. So typically Wednesdays, Scotty, we do our news rundown. We make sure that we cover all of the local stuff on Sundays, but then we use our Wednesdays to get a national scope and perspective on all the big things happening across the country in the biggest leagues, in the NFL, in the NBA, all these different things. So we are going to hit our news rundown right off the bat. And we have some things that we want to jump in on. So, Ella Cola in Twitch chat. It's a Nuggets vibe with the colors planned. I mean,
we didn't plan it, but we're gonna say we did at this point.
It's kind of cool because like you can see here my yellow fades to the blue and then it goes to the dark blue in yours. It's like it's kind of like it just all transitions all together, so it's kind of nice, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, Nuggets vibes. Go Nuggets. The NBA is starting back up tonight, Scotty, and it's fantastic. I put there's a lot of college basketball and NBA that we're kind of following now that it's back up and running. We just finished the All-Star weekend. I have a little 4-team parlay that's finishing off tonight with Dallas Mavericks. I don't know if we know the score of that Dallas Mavericks game, but I need the Mavericks just to win, straight up. And I don't know what's going on in that game, but
I just checked out. They're down 7 at half, but
the Mavs?
Plenty of time. Yep, yeah, they're down 7.
Come
San
on,
Antonio,
Luka.
59-52.
Luka's gonna turn it on in the second half. I know it. Yeah, no, that's the last leg. Every time I get to my last leg on my parlays, it's always that one. It always messes with me and always gives me a little heart attack every single time. But we'll keep an eye on that game and see what happens. So let's go ahead and let's get started with some of these. Now, there was a big week in the NFL here. Now, this was a big week because it was franchise tag week. That means that teams needed to figure out whether or not they were going to franchise tag certain players in the NFL, and or if they're going to let them go into free agency, or like just they have to make some decisions on these. And we got a lot of different names that were franchise tagged. Some of them were big, some of them were just not so big, but there were a handful that we wanted to just discuss on this first topic. So going into this first topic here, we are going into some of these franchise tags. And did any stand out to you, Scotty, on any of these that were franchised? Here, let me get to the list first of all. We're going to go over, by the way, some players that were franchise tagged and some that weren't. So notable players receiving a franchise tag from their team. One, Tampa Bay Buccaneers wide receiver Chris Godwin.
There he is.
Chris Godwin is going. Marcus May, safety for the New York Jets. Taylor Moton, tackle for the Carolina Panthers. Allen Robinson is a big one on here. Wide receiver for the Chicago Bears, getting the franchise tag. Cam Robinson, tackle for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Brandon Scherf, which I think he was franchised, if I'm not mistaken. There wasn't a last-minute change on that one, right?
He was franchised, yep.
So, I have him on my list here. Justin Simmons of the Denver Broncos. So they are the Broncos' hometown team here. So they're going to be making sure that they franchise tagged him, and he is going to be a Bronco for another year. Then we have Leonard Williams, defensive lineman for the New York Giants, and Marcus Williams, safety for the New Orleans Saints. So we have a lot of names on this list. A couple notable ones that did not get tagged. Aaron Jones, running back for the Green Bay Packers. Kenny Golladay, wide receiver for the Detroit Lions. Chris Carson, Seattle Seahawks running back. Shaq Griffin, cornerback for the Seattle Seahawks. So 2 Seahawks getting franchised there. Hunter Henry, tight end for the Los Angeles Chargers. Jonnu Smith, Tennessee Titans tight end. And Shaq Barrett is not going to get franchise tag, but they are working on a long-term deal with him. So that's the reason why they're going to, continue to make sure he doesn't get tagged. But yes, so that is the list. So we're going to kind of dive into these a little bit and kind of roll with these. Feditiri, love you guys. Keep up the good work. Hey, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Hey, make sure you're following. We love the fact that we can see familiar faces. So make sure that you're here with us each and every time we're streaming. Thank you so much. So what stands out to you on this list, Scott?
I think the most interesting team going into the tag actually was Tampa Bay. Obviously, when you have success like they did and winning a Super Bowl, and you have the free agents that they had coming up, it was a tough decision who they were going to tag between, Chris Godwin, Levante David, and Shaq Barrett. They went with Chris Godwin, so maybe that kind of tells me is they were furthest away from a deal with him and wanted to tag him. They actually agreed already to a 2-year deal announced yesterday with linebacker Levante David. And, all reports say they want to keep Shaq Barrett. We'll see, who knows, someone could come out with an insane offer for him, but they're going to try their best to do that. So thought it was interesting. They went with Godwin in a wide receiver market. We'll talk about it a little later, but the wide receiver depth in the free agency and once we talk about the NFL draft is there's a lot of depth there and a lot of talent out there. So they wanted to keep Godwin. He's, integral part. He, 840 yards last year, but the year before he even had more than that. And, an integral part to that offense, along with Mike Evans on the outside and Gronk, and Antonio Brown's a free agent. So we'll see if they bring him back. Otherwise, biggest surprise for me was actually Marcus Williams, safety from New Orleans. New Orleans is just in a really bad cap spot. We talked about how bad their cap situation is and how they gotta get rid of some money. They announced today, like they released Emmanuel Sanders, so another wide receiver. They've announced some other moves, but Marcus Williams to me is a fine safety. I don't know if he's a franchise tag type player to me. So but at safety, it's a little cheaper. So he'll make 10.5 million next year. Justin Simmons with the Broncos, not a surprise there, but it sounds like all reports are they're going to try and lock him up long term. And he said he wants to be in Denver. So we'll see what happens there. Otherwise, a couple tackles that makes sense. Allen Robinson in Chicago makes a lot of sense for them to hold on to him. The one guy you actually missed, there's one more on the list of franchise players that you missed. And it's confusing, but it's actually Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott's technically, he got the franchise tag. And what that does for him is that's now the second franchise tag, which basically eliminates him. One, Dallas can't franchise him again. And any other team that would try, let's say after this contract that wants to franchise him, when you franchise a guy for the third time, the price, it's never happened in the NFL. No one's ever been tagged 3 times because the price, and I don't know exactly what the specifications are on that, is exorbitant. So no one's ever tagged someone 3 times. They won't do it with Dak. Obviously, as you can see in our rundown, we're going to get to more of Dak in a little bit. None of these guys, were that surprising to me, except for Marcus Williams. Leonard Williams, it was a little bit of a surprise with the Giants. So we'll see if they try and reach a long-term deal. They traded for him the year before from the Jets, and he played great for the Giants, so don't get me wrong, but that's a huge $16 million against the cap next year. So we'll see what they end up doing with that. But everyone else I kind of expected and wasn't surprised by.
Yeah. By the way, Fediteri, thank you for the follow. Appreciate you. Thank you. It means a lot. Glad to have you part of the Lab Rats crew here. It's fantastic to have you with us every single week. Franchise Dak was a weird one because he did get signed to that big contract. So signing that's another stipulation. The third franchise tag. It's like when you rent a vehicle and you end up letting them fill up your tank for you. It's just like ridiculous gas prices. It's not worth it, and it's like that's exactly what it is like for no one's in their right mind gonna take that option, right? So that's just where we're at there. And so. As far as that goes, Chris Godwin, I mean, he's the one from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers who just won the Super Bowl. Pro Bowl receiver, 65 passes, 840 yards, 7 scores during the 2020 regular season, 16 catches, 232 yards, and a score for the postseason in the postseason route to the Lombardi Trophy in that game. So he's currently slotted to make $15.8 million on the tag in 2021. So just because you get tagged doesn't mean you're not getting paid, right? You're still getting that money. Marcus May is going to be making, he's the safety for the Jets, $10.4 million on the tag. And it kind of depends on, so how they do this is by position and the average of the position, contracts and what that looks like. So that's just a heads up on how they decide those numbers for the franchise tags. So, but yeah, Allen Robinson was a big one. As far as he goes, he's 27 years old, career high 102 catches for 1,250 yards, 6 touchdowns in 2020. So, they wanted to keep him around, and they still need to figure out a quarterback situation there in Chicago. So, trying to figure out what may keep him there, maybe a long-term situation. Maybe, it might lean on who's quarterback for them next year. So that's another big one there. Justin Simmons, Broncos hometown guy here. That was kind of no surprise. I think we want to keep him overall long-term. He's such a solid player. We've talked about him on previous streams. He's arguably one of the most talented players on this roster, top to bottom, just based off of what he can do. So he's going to be earning around $13.7 million in 2021. And then you mentioned Marcus Williams, the safety for the New Orleans Saints. He started 60 games in his first 4 seasons with New Orleans, logging just 1 interception. But he's slated to make about 10.4 in 2021 for his contract. So a lot of things going on here, as far as those go. Now, some of the other ones and we're going to touch on this a little bit, but there are some players that did not get franchise tagged and are going to be exploring options this offseason. So some big names here. We mentioned Aaron Jones, running back for the Packers. He had a great season this past year, got the Packers and contributed to getting them to that NFC Championship. So the fact that they didn't decide to make an option on him is interesting there. Aaron Jones could be a big addition on another team. Who knows if he's gonna? I don't think they are planning on getting a long-term deal. I haven't seen any reports on that from Green Bay up until this point. So that's a big one. And then Kenny Golladay, wide receiver for the Lions. So they just end up bringing in Jared Goff, but they don't end up wanting to keep a Kenny Golladay to go with him. So that's another aspect of Detroit that is kind of a weird thing there. So Hunter Henry, tight end for the Los Angeles Chargers, could be a nice piece. A lot of tight ends are going to be valuable when it comes to certain schemes and certain teams. So that's also another nice piece if you can add a nice solid tight end from the Los Angeles Chargers. So what do you think about some of the players that did not get franchise tagged?
I kind of talked about the biggest surprise, not surprise, but the toughest call was in Tampa. We're going to get into a lot of these guys when we talk about our free agency rankings. We're going to dive in a little bit to the offensive side of the ball tonight. We'll cover the defensive free agents on Sunday night show, but we'll dive into some of these guys. The franchise tag, we had about a third of the teams use it. It's an expensive thing, and there wasn't any huge shocks to me as far as who didn't get it. We'll talk about, I love Aaron Jones. I think you talked about him. I think Aaron Jones is a great running back, but I'm of the belief that you don't invest a large amount of money in your running back position. They don't have a long shelf life. A lot of it's based off blocking. You have guys with skills, but you look at Dallas and they're happy they got Dak tied up and this and that, but Zeke is making a lot of money. And you kind of saw last year that Zeke's a little dependent on that offensive line and the passing game working for him to get going. Not to mention he had terrible fumbling issues last year. So I'm not a big invest in the running back guy position, even though I do think Aaron Jones could help a lot of offenses and would help a lot. I wouldn't want to be the one to pay him is the problem.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. You'll also notice that Chris Carson, running back from the Seahawks, is on here as well. In this league, paying running backs long-term money, long-term contracts, isn't exactly the smartest thing to do. It's a quarterback league, it's a wide receiver league, and those are the areas where teams are building around now. It's kind of like the NBA shifting to more of a three-point shot. Like if you can't shoot the three-point shot, it's kind of there's not much of like the centers in the league. You'll notice that in NBA, centers are shooting more threes. Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, all these guys are starting to get that as part of their game because it's not something. That's the way the league is evolving. Same thing with the NFL. It's a quarterback league. Running backs are important. Don't get me wrong, it's a big piece of it, but it's just not for a long-term contract where you're locked in for, a period of time that maybe you don't need to be. So you're going to see contracts, I think, for running backs be a lot shorter, in the next few years, and that's just the way the league is trending. So,
yep.
So not a surprise to see a couple of those guys in here as far as the running backs go. So I know we alluded to it a little bit earlier, but as far as our next topic here, another franchise tag, aka also being added to a long-term contract, was Dak. Dak has been a big name when it comes to our show because we have a lot of Dallas fans that watch as well. So when it comes to Dak is kind of been a topic of discussion. He's been looking for this big contract. He's been trying to get to that point where he's on Jerry Jones's good list, which Jerry Jones has always loved Dak. He's always loved Dak and Zeke. Those are his boys. So the fact that Jerry Jones wasn't exactly committing to Dak previously, especially once the injury hit, and it was like, the franchise tag from last year, and all these factors, all these things were just going into this mix. But Dak did end up getting paid. He ended up getting a nice little contract, which ended up breaking some records, including the richest signing bonus at $66 million. Richest 1 year payout, $75 million for 1 year, and most guaranteed money at signing for $95 million. So Dak is making some really good money here. He's cashed in.
Yeah. No, he's killing it. I mean, this contract, and he's only, he'll be 28 this season essentially. This contract will be 4 years. It'll run out, on his 30 when he's 31. So going into his 32nd year of life, which I'm already decently beyond that. So he'll have a whole nother contract in front of him. I mean, we're talking about a guy that's going to make, if he produces on this contract, like, a lot of people think he should, he's going to make a lot of money throughout his career. He's been a Dallas fan growing up. Never thought this, what choice did Dallas have? They had to keep Dak on this roster. They didn't really have a choice. They even, it's caused a lot. They restructured 3 of their offensive linemen just today to save them $17 million against the cap to help offset the Dak Prescott $22 million he's getting against the cap this year, which isn't terrible. I actually saw, my buddy sent me a meme that was Dak Prescott is $22 million against the cap this year for the Cowboys. Carson Wentz is $34 million, I believe, against the cap for the Philadelphia Eagles.
I saw that meme. I saw that. Yeah. It was hilarious.
I didn't know if you were going to put that out there on Friday if you're doing the meme thing, but didn't want to steal your thunder. But he's still making $12 million less this year to a division rival who doesn't even have that quarterback on the roster. So he's going to get paid. And a lot of, what I've seen and what this probably means is Jerry Jones is more tied in to the situation with the league, the salary cap, and most importantly, the TV deals and the TV contracts. So TV contracts were up. They're in negotiations right now. Nothing's been officially released, but them signing Dak right now is to me signaling how good of a TV deal the NFL is getting here. I've heard reports that it's going to double from their last contract as far as payments, and going to set up where, within the next, right now, this year, they announced the cap this year at 182.5, which was actually down just because of, the COVID stuff from last year. Last year was, I think, 198. But I've heard reports within the next 4 to 5 years, it'll be 250 million. So at that time, are they that, and it's going to grow a lot, especially next year. It's going to jump in 2022, leaps and bounds from 2021, and everyone's going to have money to spend next year. So, and that, the position that's going to get rewarded the most is quarterback. Quarterback's going to be the position that sees the most profit. I saw, oh my gosh, what's his name? Clay with Outkick, Clay Travis, who's a, interesting character. He talked about that the reality that there are going to be quarterbacks that play in the NFL right now that are going to have the opportunity to make $1 billion throughout their career just on their NFL contracts. We're not talking sponsorships. We're not talking anything else. Obviously, Mahomes last year signed that $500 million contract, which honestly is going to end up being a bargain if they never renegotiate that. Like, the Chiefs are going to look golden only paying Mahomes that amount of money, which sounds crazy when you say the word $500 million, but it's a discount for sure because he wants to win. Obviously Dallas has some holes, but they should be with Dak back. Hopefully that offensive line, the 3 guys they renegotiated their contract on today. La'el Collins, their right tackle, didn't play a snap last year, like a Pro Bowl caliber, has made a Pro Bowl. Their left tackle, Tyron Smith, who I think played 2 to 3 games last year. And then their all-pro guard, Zach Martin. All these guys are phenomenal players. Zach Martin, I think, played 10 games last year. So combined, I think these guys played like 12 games last year. So if they're healthy next year with the weapons they have at wide receiver, and a healthy offensive line with Zeke at running back, that offense should be great. Obviously, they need that defense to get a little more consistent, a little more talented on that side of the football. But I got to think at this point, Dallas is, should absolutely be the favorite in the NFC East. You're going to have Jalen Hurts, first-time quarterback, essentially with Philadelphia. Washington doesn't even have a quarterback. I don't know. No, I don't think anybody knows who Washington's quarterback is going to be right now. I don't know if Washington knows who their quarterback is going to be, and it's not like they have a high draft pick to get one of those elite guys in the draft unless they trade up. And then the New York Giants, I think they even overachieved with their record last year. I just don't. Daniel Jones isn't a guy that pushes the needle for me, and by far, Dak might be leaps and bounds more ahead in that division than any other division as far as quarterbacks within a division. Like that's such a quarterback hungry division, except for the Dallas with Dak Prescott, who is set up with him for the next 4 years.
Yeah. I mean, Dak Prescott, with this deal, has a no trade clause and a no tag provision as a part of this deal, obviously, because of what we alluded to earlier with the tagging, details of that. He essentially gets 126 million guaranteed, plus true free agency if he wants 4 years from now to take advantage of that. It's the best deal for a player anyone has ever, that's what some people are saying. This could be the best deal that any player has ever signed, based off of some of these details of the TV contracts and the free agency when all this is up again. Dak got something very, very unique here, and that's becoming a free agent when the new TV money kicks in. He's going to have another opportunity to get another major payday. Not only did he get a big payday today, but he could get another massive payday if everything goes right and he plays to the level that Jerry Jones and some of the other people in the league think he can live up to, like some of these expectations. He could be living life large. I'll tell you, it's crazy. Some of the other, so I thought this was interesting too. Some of the other picks, quarterbacks that were taken before Dak Prescott in this one.
This is a list of
this is a heck of a list here. So these
GM shitting the bed.
These are quarterbacks taken before Dak Prescott. Jared Goff, who's been traded, he's in Detroit. Carson Wentz has been traded, is in Indy. Paxton Lynch, sorry Broncos fans, sorry for myself. Doesn't even have a team. Christian Hackenberg doesn't have a team. Jacoby Brissett is a free agent. Cody Kessler doesn't have a team. Connor Cook doesn't have a team. So these are just some of the quarterbacks that were taken ahead of Dak Prescott in the draft. So he is by far outshining everyone else that was his predecessor when it came to draft day.
I will say the greatest thing in that draft that happened to the Dallas Cowboys and the worst thing that happened to the Denver Broncos is there were a ton of reports out there that Dallas was in love with Paxton Lynch.
There were.
And wanted to move up. Denver ended up moving up, grabbing him. There was actually some reports that the Chiefs were interested as well. Thank you, Broncos. I appreciate you so much. Dallas and Kansas City has so much to thank for you taking Paxton Lynch off our hands. And then, they settled, Dallas did, for Dak a couple rounds later, and it's paid off quite a bit for him. We'll see. Obviously, he had that huge injury to his leg, not a small injury. He's not the most mobile guy, but he can definitely get you yards running the ball. So we'll see how he recovers from that. I think he'll probably be fine, but it's something to look for.
Yeah. I think, when it comes to injuries nowadays, I remember when we were, younger and there was an torn ACL and it was just slow recovery. Ever since, you remember when Adrian Peterson tore his ACL and he came back instantly pretty much?
I was going to say, was it a week later?
He came back.
It wasn't that, but it was crazy fast.
Ever since then, you hear of athletes coming back sooner and sooner and sooner. And those are just it's a torn ACL. Obviously there's a lot of major injuries that happen. Alex Smith had a major injury and it's taken him a lot longer, obviously, because there's a lot more rehab. But, when it comes to a basic torn ACL, I feel like medicine has caught up and players are coming back at a stronger, healthier, quicker rate than they have ever before. So, as far as, some of these go, I think that that's on Prescott's side when it's coming to, battling past this injury. He did get this injury fairly early on, so he should have enough time to get back into the swing of things with the off season, the OTAs, and everything else. So I expect him to be pretty solid. But yeah, again, you don't know until you see him out there on the field what he's going to be looking like. So. I hope I'm happy for him because, there was a lot of people saying like, Jerry Jones, man, you gotta take care of your guy. Don't do this to him. Like, don't do him dirty like this. Like, make sure that if you like him and stop franchise tag, just give him his deal. And he finally got there and he's rewarded. So that's great for Dak.
I'll be honest. Any player that knows that Jerry wants him on the team and needs him, Jerry always takes care of his guys.
Yeah.
Like, to an extent that's almost too much. Like, his heart's in it to an extent that maybe as an owner it's almost too much at times. But he's a great owner and a great, staple for the NFL. Jerry Jones is, regardless how you feel about him. He's been huge for the NFL, but he will always take care of his guys if he truly loves that guy. And he's not trying to rebuild. Jerry's not exactly young. He wants to watch his team get back to the Super Bowl.
Yep. Yeah, it's kind of he kind of just, does, whether you like him or not, he kind of has some of that like Al Davis kind of in him too. Like Al Davis, and whether or not you liked what he did or didn't like what he did, it's like, I don't know. There's some of those like very charismatic, very iconic owners that just, it is what it is, right? Like,
yep.
Yeah. So good for Dak. I think it's going to be fun to watch. That's your second favorite team, right?
It is.
So
my NFC team right there.
That's your NFC team. So you're going to have a lot of fun watching. My best friend is a big Dallas Cowboys fan as well. Big shout out to Big Pork Chop wherever you're at. If you're watching, make sure you're subscribing. You better. And tell little Ollie hi for me too. Yeah. So I'm always vested in watching to see what the Dallas Cowboys are doing, just because he's always been a big fan growing up, and so we both have best friends that have Dallas ties. So it's in our best interest to have them as someone we can follow on the side when we're not watching our own teams play.
I mean, they are my second favorite team, but I did have some guilt this year. Like, I felt bad as the Chiefs were obviously succeeding and Dallas was obviously in a rough year. I felt bad for my buddy. It was hard to bring up football where he was just like, and he is the biggest Dak supporter you would ever imagine. Like, he's all on Dak Prescott. Like, once Dak went down, he was just super depressed and super sad about the whole situation. So
it makes watching games like with them so much more boring, right? Because they're just like, you can't get into it. Steph in the Facebook chat, Pork Chop, she knows Pork Chop very well. So yeah, he's doing well. New, a 6-month-old here coming up. He's doing fantastic. He's better with the Cowboys being better. So I saw a picture of Ollie with a little Cowboys onesie this past week on Facebook. So yeah, he's gearing up little baby Ollie for Cowboy season already. So there you go.
And the rest of the people watching can now know that there's actually a person that's called Pork Chop out there. So
yes, there is. We might have to get him on the show at some point just to see, when we have our Dallas Cowboys. Here's what we should do. We should get our best friends to come in. We'll get all of our Dallas Cowboys buddies in here. We'll get Pork Chop, we'll get Monder in, and we'll make sure we have some of the best Dallas Cowboys commentary out there. There won't be anything better. You can go to Dallas and listen to the local radio station. It won't be as good as what we'll have on this stream with those two.
We will have some passion, emotion, and some hot takes that you'll never believe. And my buddy would love to come on. He's probably hoping every day I ask him. So,
I mean, I'm sure he'll have a couple drinks beforehand, and it'll be very entertaining. P. Nix in Twitch chat Broncos were dumb to discard Dak because he missed a flight. Yeah, I think I remember that story. Wasn't there something along those lines where there was
I don't. This is the first time hearing that. I was not aware of that.
I think I'm not super familiar with the story either, but I do remember there was something along those lines where it turned off the franchise or something when it came to us being like as high as we were. Obviously, we were still really focused on Paxton Lynch, though. Paxton Lynch, leading up to that draft, John Elway was like tunnel visioned on just Paxton Lynch. Like there were reports that, even pre-draft that he was thinking about trading up to possibly get Paxton Lynch. So, I think that, it was still going to go that direction, even if, there wasn't any issues with Dak and stuff like that. But yeah,
Dak was a backup plan. If they didn't get Paxton, who they really wanted, Dak could have been a backup plan. So even though they discarded him, I don't know. If I'm the GM of a team and, I'm expecting a guy to show up and he misses a flight, and I'm not a fan of John Elway as a GM, but I'd probably be pretty hesitant to have that guy, especially as the franchise quarterback for my team in the future. Like that, I'd be hesitant about that. I don't know that this is the first I'm hearing of it. I don't know the circumstances or why he missed the flight, but yeah, P Nixon in the chat because Elway can't evaluate QB talent. That's for sure.
100%.
He can be a good QB, but we've seen Brock Osweiler, Tim Tebow, Paxton Lynch. He wasn't really there for Tebow, but no. Brock, Paxton. Then he tries to go the free agency route. Nothing's really worked. Obviously, now we got Drew Lock, which doesn't look like, unless he really turns it around Josh Allen style, that he's going to work out. So he's kind of 0 for 3 in the draft. And I think, Paxton was a first rounder. I think Brock and Drew were both second rounders that just didn't hit. So he's kind of 0 for 3 on the quarterback front.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's definitely some gaps when it comes to John Elway's knowledge. I think there's jokes here on the local radio stations that John Elway just likes big, tall guys. He doesn't care. Like he just likes big, tall quarterbacks that can see over the line and hurl the ball downfield like that. Yeah, sure, I get that.
Strong arm,
tall quarterbacks, and that doesn't always pay off. I mean, if you're looking at some of the young, Russell Wilson's not that big. Drew Brees isn't that big. Dak isn't exactly the tallest guy in the NFL. Like, there's a bunch of quarterbacks that aren't exactly tall. So it's like, some of the best quarterbacks, you can't just go off.
The game's changed.
The game has changed quite a bit.
He's focused on when he was getting back in his day in the 80s. Yeah, that tall, in the pocket, strong arm quarterback was whatever it was at. But look at the first round pick, number 1 overall picks recently, like Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield. None of those guys are what you would think if you are looking at picture perfect quarterback. Even Patrick Mahomes he's 6'2". He's not, that's not short, but for a quarterback, that's certainly not tall. Baker and Kyler are, especially Kyler, he's teeny tiny. He looks like just a little person out there. He looks like, if you've ever seen Spaceballs, the movie, he looks like, and no one's going to understand this reference.
I know this
Spaceballs
reference.
Came out the Darth Vader mock guy that they had. What was his name? I don't even remember his name.
Rick Moranis. Rick Moranis. He's
no, the actor was that name, but what was his name in the movie? It was something like Large Head or something. It was not that, but it was something like that.
Help us out in chat if you know the character. I think it was. Oh man, it's slipping my mind right now. But I know exactly. Yeah.
That's what Kyler Murray looks like when he puts a helmet on. Like, it just looks like the helmet doesn't even fit, and there's just this miniature person in a helmet in the NFL. And listen, he's played pretty well so far. Number 1 overall pick, and they're not upset in Arizona. And supposedly JJ Watt believes in him, so we'll see what happens there. But
Steph in the Facebook chat, tall is good, but doesn't matter if they can't move. Yeah, you're right. It's all about being able to be agile, being able to get out of the pocket if you need and make some plays. I mean, you saw Patrick Mahomes do that in the Super Bowl plenty of times, and he was making some on the dime money throws, even just falling down. It was crazy, and so that's where it's going. And even look at the quarterbacks that are going to be coming up in this draft. We're going to be covering by the way, all of our draft coverage is going to be live on our stream. We're going to do maybe doing a couple extra streams, potentially covering even more of the draft than we typically would be. But look at the quarterbacks that are going in the top 10. You got some pretty mobile quarterbacks that are in that mix. So it's just the way the league is trending. You want to be able to throw the ball downfield and be a pocket passer, but the mold is built after Patrick Mahomes. He's able to get the ball downfield. He can stay in the pocket, but he could also make plays on his feet. So, I think that a lot of people are like, oh, well, Michael Vick, the old Michael Vick is kind of that mold started out back then. But Michael Vick wasn't, he was great, but, it's a different kind of you have to be more patient when you're on the run and be able to make those plays downfield with your arm on the run. And that was some of the things that
I think the bigger thing is to be able to run around behind the line of scrimmage and give your guys time to get open and find your guys that way is way more of a weapon than a guy who can, maybe he'll run and scamper for a bit, but Mahomes is so aware of where he's at on the field, where the line of scrimmage is. Like, that's just, from watching him, that's such a huge advantage. Like, he can just extend the play so long, and it's impossible to ask those secondary guys to cover for that long. So I have no problem on like a third down, Mahomes running the ball to pick up that first down if he knows he can get it. Otherwise, I'd much rather, unless he knows he can get like 15 or 20, I'd rather him just get outside the pocket and sit behind the line of scrimmage and wait for someone to get open and use his arm. So you still got to be able to read coverage. You still got to be able to throw the ball accurately, but you got to be able to move around and buy yourself some time.
Devin, Facebook chat, Rick Moranis was Dark Helmet.
Dark Helmet. Okay.
Dark Helmet.
So it doesn't reference the size of it, but no. Rick Moranis was in that movie. It looks like he was about 4'8".
Dark Helmet. Yeah. So thank you for helping us out with that Spaceballs reference. I haven't seen Spaceballs in a while, and I love that movie. I actually, Lauren never saw it. My wife Lauren never saw it, and we saw it about, I don't know, it was maybe within the last year. And she was like, "This is the most ridiculous movie I've ever seen." And I mean, she's not wrong, but it's still a great movie. I'm not gonna lie.
I watched it for the first time in my middle school science class. Somehow my teacher had decided this was an educational film for us to watch. And we watched Spaceballs in my science class in middle school. And seen it a lot since. But you're right. It's been a long time for me. Hence why I could not. I appreciate you guys helping us out there because I could not remember his name.
Yeah, no, that's it's an older movie, but if you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's worth the watch. I guarantee it. So, earlier on we were talking about some of the franchise tags, some different things as far as who's franchise tags, who wasn't. Now with this, there are some free agents that are going to be available. So we wanted to cover a little bit of these free agents that are going to be on the market looking for new teams. And those guys, we're going to be covering defense and offensive players. But this week we're going to be covering some defensive players or offensive players on this stream. Sunday we're going to be hitting some of our defensive free agents that are going to be out there. So with that being said, let's dive into some of the rankings for the offensive free agents of the NFL here. So let me give me 1 second. Let me pull this up here. Now, as far as number 10, let me pull this up. Sorry. Nope, that's not number 10. That's number 9.
You're close. You probably just got to move. There we go.
Hunter Henry is number 10 on this list. So he is a tight end for the Chargers, and he will be hitting the free agent market. Number 10, tight end. Where do you think do you have any destinations that you think he can potentially land, or why do you have him 10th on this list?
I don't have a feel. He'd probably be higher on this list if he hasn't had the injury history he's had, which is probably somewhat just being an LA Charger because they seem to have the worst injury luck in all the NFL. I mean, they have that elite safety, Derwin James, who's been healthy for like a season out of his 3 seasons or something. And Hunter Henry had a ton of injury history. He was healthy for the most part. He played 14 games last year, 613 yards, which doesn't sound like a ton. Which actually ranked, let me check, 12th at tight ends last year, but he was, 100 yards from being third. So outside of a couple of guys and Travis Kelce and Darren Waller, who lapped the field in tight ends last year, receiving yards, Hunter Henry's an elite weapon. We'll see. Maybe he'll be back with the Chargers. I think you want to supply that young quarterback with Justin Herbert with as many weapons as you can. They're talented with, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams on the outside. But keeping Hunter Henry would be nice. We'll see what happens there. I don't have a feel for where he's going. He's a good talent, big bodied guy. Certainly some athleticism there. The biggest issue with him is his injury prone history. And that's why he's still, ranked at 10, but would be an exciting guy for, he's going to be tight end 1 anywhere he goes. Nobody, is going to sign him as a tight end 2. He's a talented receiving threat, a big body who can block a little bit, but super talented. If he can stay healthy, he could easily be, a top 5 tight end in the league, no doubt.
Yeah, I think he's definitely within one of the top echelon of the tight end group. Is any guy who can get, or any team that can get their hands on Hunter Henry, I think is going to be, benefiting from a big output offensively. He's proven that he can be a solid player for the Chargers, and he can definitely do some things for some other teams around the league too, especially the tight end heavy teams. You think of some of the teams like Baltimore who rely on tight ends a lot. You have the Broncos have tight end. I mean, some of these teams already kind of have their set, but I mean, teams are starting to go more to those tight ends to kind of break things up within their offense and try to move the ball downfield a little bit more. They've seen the mold start with the Gronks and the Travis Kelce's and all these tight ends. Teams just salivate to get tight ends like that. Now, I don't think Hunter Henry's in the top echelon of like Zach Ertz or maybe a Kelce, but he's not far behind. He's still young, and he could still make some big plays for anybody out there. So we'll see what ends up happening with him, but he's going to get a nice little payday, I think.
Yep.
Number 9, Fitzpatrick. So this was an interesting one only because there were actually some stories out there that said he was retiring. He was like thinking about it and he was pondering it, but like he never officially said he was. There was just a bunch of reports saying he was thinking about calling it quits and he was thinking about maybe doing something different. But it turns out that there's conflicting reports on different sides and no decision's been made, but he is a free agent and he's available to go out and explore free agency should he choose. So now where he goes is kind of up in the air. I've seen some reports that maybe New England could be a landing spot for Fitzpatrick as well, because they aren't necessarily sold on Cam Newton, but there could be a couple different things happening with Fitzpatrick, which, by the way, he's one of the better quarterbacks, like backup quarterbacks. He comes in and he wins you some games, and he's not exactly starter material, but he'll still get you some wins. So he's an interesting one for sure. He's not a long-term fix, so he's maybe going to be a Band-Aid for a team that's going to be needing something for a couple years while they're kind of either filling some gaps in other areas and then waiting to draft a quarterback or something along those lines. So he's not a starting quarterback by any means for a long-term situation, but he can come in and he can do some things for you.
I just get caught up in the Fitzmagic hype, but I think I might be way higher on Fitzpatrick than most people. I don't think he's a backup QB right now. There's no way you can convince me that there are 32 quarterbacks in the world that are better than Ryan Fitzpatrick right now. Like that's just not the case. Is he a great backup? Absolutely. He was. Let's all be honest. He was better than Tua for Miami last year. There's no doubt about that. I mean, and for him to retire, you saw how giddy. And if you watched this highlight right here, where he had the miracle against the Raiders last year, where they had no chance, and then he completed this pass like 35 yards, 40 yards down the field, and then got the 15 yards added onto it to kick a game-winning field goal for Miami to win that game. And then they benched him the next week for Tua. I actually think he might have got COVID along with that or something. Something happened where he was out. But even before he was out, they announced that Tua was going to play the next week against Buffalo in that last game of the season, which made no sense to me. Fitzpatrick is for sure a top 32. I don't know exactly where I rank him. I think maybe, I don't know, somewhere in between 20 and 25. If I were ranking quarterbacks in the league, he makes a ton of plays. He's been around a long time. He's he's a Harvard boy. Don't know if you ever heard that. They basically tell it every time you watch him play on the telecast. So hopefully you have. But he's fun out there. He gives it his all. He makes some mistakes. He's a gambler. He throws the ball down the field for sure. So he'll lose you some games, but he'll win you some games. Like even before that in Tampa, he was probably, him and Jameis were like neck and neck as far as like who was better. And I think Jameis is slightly underrated and probably going to be the starting quarterback for the Saints this year when Breeze officially calls it quits, which I think he will do. So, and I'll say right now, as someone in Denver, I wouldn't if Denver's route is bringing in a veteran presence, because it doesn't sound like they're interested in bringing in a first round quarterback in the draft. So if their routes bring in a veteran presence to compete with Drew Lock, Ryan Fitzpatrick's the guy. Like I've heard, oh my gosh, who's the ginger from Dallas? Andy Dalton or someone like that. Forget that. Like Andy Dalton's
he's a little washed up. He's a little washed up.
Yeah, he's just not there anymore. Fitzmagic has some magic still in there. I think he'd be an upgrade over Drew Lock, certainly. And would be fun to watch. Even if he's not going to lead you, he's not a guy that's going to lead you to a Super Bowl. He's proven he can make the playoffs if your team around him is talented enough. And I would argue that Miami's offense isn't that talented. Their defense is the strength of that team, but he played pretty well. I'm a believer in Fitzmagic. I like him a lot. Maybe it's because my brother for Halloween a couple of years ago, P. Nixon here in the chat, you can testify to this or throw out a pick if you can figure out how to do that. He grew a beard out like Fitzmagic and wore the same I don't know, it was like a biker jacket when he was in Tampa Bay with no shirt underneath and just showing a lot of chest hair,
Classic.
Which I don't have, but my brother does. So I don't know. I'm a believer in Fitzmagic. I like him a lot. I don't think it's close. Like you're not going to find very often an elite guy in the free agency at the quarterback position. So he's not elite by any means, but I think he's vastly underrated and underappreciated. And I think Denver should take a look.
I think he is one of the most disrespected quarterbacks in the league, based off of like what he's done for some teams and what how he's just been discarded like time and time again. Like the way Miami handled it, like he was doing well, for them across the start of the season, when, Tua wasn't there. And, I just felt like they just got rid of him when he was at his peak playing at a really high level at that time, and they just kind of we're just gonna like shift away from you. Sorry, I know you're playing well, but it doesn't matter. It was kind of weird. And I feel like he's definitely one of the more disrespected quarterbacks, if not disrespected players in the league, from that standpoint, for sure. But hey, we'll see where he lands. Like I said, the only thing that I've really seen here, I've seen a couple reports where people have predicted him to go to New England, which, I would,
as a guy that doesn't want to see New England win, I don't want to see him go to New England. I think I
agree.
With the guys that are coming back off the COVID list from last year on their defensive side of the ball, especially, they could be not Super Bowl caliber, but they could be very dangerous with him at quarterback.
Yeah.
I've seen him. I've seen Marcus Mariota rumored there. Both of those guys, I don't want to see in New England. I want to see New England not get anybody and just have to start like, what is it, Heward or whatever?
Yeah.
Who's just garbage. Let's start him.
I'd be okay with that. Even though New England didn't have the biggest year this year, that doesn't mean I want them to get better and back to what they used to be. Like, we want them to stay down for a while, which, sorry to all those Patriots fans in the chat, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch.
I'm not sorry. You guys won plenty. Suck it up and lose for a little bit.
There you go. Give some of us a chance, and by some of us, I mean, I guess the Chiefs, because the Broncos aren't going to be in contention anytime soon. So there it is. Number 8, Corey Davis. Now Corey Davis with the Titans. I mean, solid guy, man. What do you think about Corey Davis?
I mean, here's a guy that actually played really, really well. I mean, he was a top 10 pick years ago for the Tennessee Titans out of a small school. Super talented guy. Had almost 1,000 yards receiving last year. 984. He's actually a guy I've pinpointed that would be, I think, perfect for the Chiefs. Don't know if the Chiefs will be able to afford him based off the market and some of the guys being left off. And the wide receiver market's going to be so competitive in the sense that it's not going to be great unless you're the elite guy. We'll talk about, there's a couple more on our list here that are going to get huge paydays based off of a couple guys getting tagged, which they should thank those guys and maybe give them a cut of that. Those guys like we talked about with Chris Godwin and Allen Robinson, who would have been the top 2 wide receivers and, maybe top 2 offensive players debatably in free agency, but they got tagged. So these other guys are left to pick up the pieces. Corey Davis was the number 2 in obviously with the Tennessee Titans, but man, the Tennessee Titans have 2 guys in their wide receiving core and tight end position, and we'll talk about that guy later. That is going to hurt that offense. I know they're a run-first offense, obviously, with Derrick Henry, but that play-action game with Ryan Tannehill, Brown on the outside is just elite. He's sick. I love him. He's like a beast, like T.O. But Corey Davis is a guy I think is underrated. Coming off that 900, almost 1,000-yard season last year, like I talked about. I don't know. I think he's an elite weapon. He's a guy you could use, and there's going to be a lot of teams going after him. So we'll see what happens.
I mean, this kind of goes back into what we were saying earlier with, tight end position and just like he can be a very solid player for a team that fits in that tight end kind of mold, trying to fill a gap. And hey, he can make some things happen. So I think Corey Davis is a big pickup for whoever can get him.
He was the 5th overall pick in the draft when they took him. So there's clearly some athletic talent there that's insane. And
yep,
someone's going to be lucky to get him.
And then we have Jonnu Smith right up next to him in number 7 as far as offensive free agents go. Jonnu Smith, we alluded to him earlier.
Yeah, Jonnu Smith's never been a guy that's put up huge numbers. I think he had about 600 yards receiving, but a lot of touchdowns for the Titans last year. This is the other guy I was just referencing that it's going to be a weapon that's going to hurt that play action game in Tennessee. So that's an elite core when you have A.J. Brown, Corey Davis, and Jonnu Smith all catching balls with Derrick Henry in the backfield and a good offensive line. Ryan Tannehill looks like a great quarterback, right?
Yep.
We'll see what happens if they lose Jonnu, they lose Corey Davis. It all comes down to kind of Derrick Henry and then A.J. Brown on the outside. And if I were them, I would actually just throw to A.J. Brown on the outside every play. And if he has one guy on him and hope he makes the play, because he probably will. I think A.J. Brown's – I watch him play, and I think he's filthy. I think he's a top 3 wide receiver in the league, which most people wouldn't rank him there, but I think he's there. Jonnu Smith's a guy like – another guy. I'm greedy. I want I've always wanted the Chiefs to add like a second tight end to their repertoire. That could be elite and but similar to the Aaron Hernandez. Didn't think I was going to throw out that name tonight. And
I
Rob
mean,
Gronkowski days with New England. When they had those two guys at tight end, leave out all of the things that happened with Aaron Hernandez. They were so unstoppable, that pair of tight ends. So I think if you can add a guy like Jonnu to Travis Kelce, I'd love that. So like, hey, what do I think the Chiefs would love to see? This guy's never had the huge stats, but he's a great inline blocker. He's a two-way guy in that sense. He can block and receive the ball. He's a great athlete, can make plays if you throw him a jump ball. I like him a lot, and the reason he's in front of Hunter Henry is he can stay healthy for you. So that's an important trait.
yeah, that's the one thing. He hasn't exactly had too many injuries, and he's definitely a good complement to any number one tight end. So any tight end that, I mean, blocking in the running game, as you mentioned, plus being able to catch balls as the secondary tight end. I mean, that's just kind of what his MO is, and he's a quality guy in that position, in that role. So I think he's a fantastic pickup for them. He's mostly the inline option. He's only 26. He's athletic. Post up catchability, open field, like a running back almost. So, yeah, I think he's got some of those traits that really translate to having a solid player like that in your offense. So, hopefully, Jonnu Smith ends up finding a good home. But I think whoever gets him, again, these are top 10. So, anyone who's going to get any of these top 10 are going to be pretty happy. But, yeah, this is going to be a big one for somebody. Juju Smith Schuster. So Mr. TikTok, Mr. Dance, Mr. Getting out there and showing off a little bit, having, he had a good season with Pittsburgh, but Juju's coming in at number 6.
Yeah. Obviously Juju came straight out of getting drafted with the Steelers and having like elite production for him. The last year Antonio Brown was there 3 seasons ago, and Juju was there. He had 1,426 yards, which is, I mean, that's like top 5 production right there. That's an elite guy. Once Antonio Brown left, the production kind of dropped off. He did have 97 catches last year, but it was only for 831 yards. So a lot of that was just throwing to him in the flat and seeing what he could do. I blame Ben Roethlisberger and his lack of arm strength a little bit for that. But Juju's a guy that should be higher on this list, but the whole TikTok thing for me is a little bit like, I don't know. Like, are you focused on football or are you focused on like doing a dance before the game at midfield? You do you, but understand that that's going to have potential repercussions if a team doesn't see eye to eye with that. He obviously he's in the top 10. He's sitting here and he's still a great player. No disrespect there. He's, I think, number 3 or maybe 2. I don't remember how many more wide receivers we have, but he's put up stats. 1426 and 7 touchdowns a few years ago is insane. 97 catches this year, put up 9 touchdowns, which is nothing to sneeze at. So he's going to be sought after. I don't see him back in Pittsburgh unless everyone's like, oh, Ben Roethlisberger, he took a pay cut. And I'm like, I think he took a pay cut because it was a forced pay cut. Like they were like, we're not paying you what you're supposed to make. We're going to do this. But they still don't have money to pay all these guys. So we'll see what happens with Juju and where he goes. And hopefully he gets in the right fit. He's not like an elite athlete, but he's got great hands and he can be like a intermediate guy. He's not like a deep threat. So he can help a lot of teams.
I think the market is down on like a Juju based off of the production from last year, which again you mentioned and I completely agree was based off of Ben Roethlisberger not having a great season. He's an
Oh.
aging quarterback. He's not able to push the ball downfield like he used to. And Juju was kind of a casualty of that fact that he can't catch those balls, those long balls, those deep balls, whatever. And so I think that some team is going to save a little bit of money here. I think there's some off the football things, but I think that that's going to rectify itself with all of the publicity that was coming around this. There was a lot of people calling him out and saying, towards the end of the season when they started out strong, no one was saying anything, but then all of a sudden when they started losing games towards the end of the season, everyone is starting to call out the fact that Juju was distracted with his TikTok and all his dancing and everything else. And everything is good when you're winning, but everything starts coming to light when you're not winning. And I think that's what caught him in a firestorm. And that's what I think opened his eyes to, all right, during the NFL season, I got to start getting serious about some of these things. I think he'll get better with that. So I think the market is down on him. So whoever gets him might get a little bit of a sweeter deal. They're still going to have to pay for him. He's still going to be one of those upper echelon contracts that are going to be one of the top wide receivers available. But I think they're going to be getting a solid player that just had a down year for a couple different reasons that were maybe out of his control.
Yep, I agree.
All right, here we go. Joe Thuney, New England Patriots. So what do you got here?
Got an offensive guard here. So our first lineman on the list, I believe.
Yep.
This guy was a second-team All-Pro, Pro Bowler 2 years ago with the New England Patriots. Certainly a grinder. He's a great run blocker and solid in pass protection. They franchised him last year. Didn't put the second franchise tag on him this year. Actually, ironically, they traded right before the franchise deadline for Trent Brown, the left tackle from the Las Vegas Raiders, and basically chose to pay him this year over Thuney. Granted, tackle is different than guard, and they could value things differently, but this is the top guard on the market, no doubt. Could play, versatile, center in a pinch and stuff, and just a grow, just could dominate the line of scrimmage, and he has with New England and helped out their team a lot. So anytime they franchise a guy in a year, you can value that guy, even though they didn't do it a second year. He's the top interior lineman in free agency, and it's not close. And it'll be interesting to see where he goes, but he won't be back in New England, and he'll help a team a lot next year.
How long has he been with New England? Do you know? I think it's been a little bit, right? He was there when Tom Brady was there, I believe.
His whole career, so 2016 to now.
Yep. So, I think, when you think about this one, it's kind of like, you kind of give pause when anytime an offensive lineman leaves Foxborough, because Tom Brady does kind of help you look good when he's getting rid of the ball and he's being able to, kind of make his offensive line look good when, that's what Tom Brady does, right? He's smart with how they game plan and how they protect, Tom Brady, first of all, with some of the pass rush and everything else. But Thuney's durability, versatility, all of that stuff, solid all-around play. He's definitely one of the top options, if not the best option here. He just is constantly healthy and available and still playing at a peak performance. So I think that there's a lot of teams, i.e. the Denver Broncos, who offensive line issues over the last few seasons would love a Joe Thuney. But, obviously we'll see where he ends up. Whoever gets him is going to be having a big, big upgrade with their offensive line.
Yeah, there's not a second interior guy that's even close to him. So
yep,
he's gonna get paid.
All right, Will Fuller, our other wide receiver here on this list. Now, Will Fuller, there's a lot of people dipping out of Houston Texans. A lot of people want out of Houston, and Will Fuller is one of those guys that he's going to be leaving. Deshaun Watson's going to be sitting there by himself in an empty room, i.e. what is that? Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, when Will's at the very end of the season at the
Yeah.
last episode, and he's by himself looking around. There's nothing there. Will Fuller's leaving town too, probably, and so another receiver on this list. But a lot of people are leaving Houston here.
Yeah, Will Fuller, first round pick. Never. So maybe he's too high ranked. He's never eclipsed 1,000 yards. He was on pace this year. He was actually, when you talk about yards per game from a wide receiver's perspective this year, he was ninth in the league. Now, granted, he had Deshaun Watson, and they were down a lot, and he's a speed deep threat. But he's had some health issues. Definitely health issues. He's never played 16 games. In fact, the most he's played is 14. And other than that, 11. This year, actually, he was not hurt. He had some suspension issues for performance enhancing drugs. He's actually going to be suspended through week 1 of next year. So a team will have to think about, yeah, they'll lose him for week 1. But in the grand scheme of things, that's probably not a huge deal to a team that's going to sign him to this contract. He's a great deep threat. He's a first round pick, uber talented at Notre Dame. Think he's going to be a guy. He's averaged 15 yards per reception in his career. So he's a guy you can push the ball down the field with, score touchdowns. His hands are a little hit and miss at times, but obviously Hopkins left this year, Houston, and he had to step up as the number one, and he did. He had the best year of his career. So he's a guy that wasn't a product of just, everyone's doubling DeAndre on the other side. No, he had the best year of his career after Hopkins left. So he's going to be a weapon in a deep wide receiver free agency core and a deep wide receiving class. But he's going to be a guy, if he can stay healthy, can be a borderline top 10 wide receiver in the league.
Yeah. He's got that burning speed, next level tracking ability. He does have the injury concerns, but did have his best season with Deshaun Watson. I would be curious to see depending on where he goes and who the quarterback is and how the offense is structured, how they stretch the field. But he does give that second just burn downfield where you can just make some big plays. Texans are going to try, I think, to keep him. I think I've seen some reports where they'll do what they can, but there are some issues that,
he's gone.
There are some issues with, some of the other performance enhancing stuff, and he just probably doesn't want to be there. Everyone's defecting from Houston. Sorry, Houston. It's going to be a rough one for you for a long time. But
they only have themselves to blame.
Yeah, it's all pretty much self-inflicted wounds when it comes to what Houston has done there. And I mean, I hate to say it, but Deshaun kind of bought himself, him and his agent really put themselves in this situation when they signed that contract and that extension. So, I can't really, defend a lot of what Deshaun is. He obviously wants out, and we've talked about this before when it comes to Deshaun Watson. I don't think he'll necessarily be on another team when the season starts. There's going to be somebody that's going to way overpay for him, and I think Houston's going to end up making a move. And I think that he won't start the season as a starting quarterback for the Houston Texans. But, I think Will Fuller, I'm with you. I think he's gone. I think he's going somewhere else. But he can be a solid number 2 in most of these teams, maybe even a number 1 on certain teams. So it just depends on where he lands. Aaron Jones, we talked about this earlier on. So big running back free agent. Now, he is a very, very solid running back. Don't get us wrong. There's also, some of the same concerns that we had earlier with where he's going to land and what kind of deal he's going to get, because running backs don't exactly get long-term deals nowadays. It's kind of been running back is kind of one of those positions that's, fallen off a little bit in today's NFL. So as far as this goes, Aaron Jones is definitely going to be a top option for anybody who's needing some running back help, and he's going to make an immediate impact no matter where he goes. So that's going to be solid for a lot of teams that are looking for a running back. What do you think about this one?
It'll be interesting to see where he goes. I don't know what reports have said. You talked about how you haven't seen a ton on him coming back to Green Bay. I know his buddy, his wide receiver, Valdez Scantling for Green Bay
Yep.
yesterday said he was the best running back in the NFL. Probably not, but he's top five. He was fourth in rushing yards last year, and amongst the top 10, he was number one in yards per carry at 5.5, which is a crazy good number. Can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's super athletic. Green Bay has a couple guys behind him that they might want to roll with, which is confusing because those are similar guys that don't have the speed or athleticism that he has. They're more power guys, but we'll see what happens. Aaron Jones, like I said, I don't like to throw him a lot of money on running backs, but he's a top 5 running back to me in the league right now. Next year, 2 years from now, he might not be who he is now. So that's why I don't like to invest in running backs. You don't know what you're going to get year to year. They die out kind of quick. That wear and tear factor happens a lot. But right now, Aaron Jones is a weapon and a great weapon, and somebody who adds him is going to be really excited.
Yeah, he's one of the better outside zone runners. Value in the passing game. He can catch the balls out of the backfield, which is something that he has shown in Green Bay. Ability to finish drives in the red zone. He's kind of that big, bulky back that can punch the ball into the end zone on those short, third and goal situations on the 1 or 2 yard line. One of the most of he helped make the Green Bay Packers one of the more efficient red zone offenses over the last couple seasons. So, I think anyone who gets him is going to have a nice foundational back to fall on, and he's going to carry that. He's a workhorse. So, you know what you're getting. So there's nothing to really kind of question there. So Kenny Golladay, another receiver in the top 2 of this list. Kenny Golladay with the Detroit Lions. Now he's definitely had some up and down seasons, but statistically not Green Bay, Detroit, the quarterback play has been better when he's on the field. He's physical, he's well rounded. He can dig in with some of those linebackers, and he's shown that through some of these games, especially in that division. He's just able to get plays moving downfield. He can stretch the field. As amid like a wide receiver market that may not be as spectacular, he could be one of the bigger names, and he is one of the bigger names on this wide receiver list for the free agency side of things.
Yeah, I feel bad for Detroit, as everyone always should, for the Lions franchise in general, but touchdown grabs where I thought he was for sure out of bounds. They reviewed it. They said he wasn't. I'll debate it, but either way, this is an athletic freak is the top of the wide receiver market now that Godwin and Allen Robinson got the franchise tag. So he's gonna help a team a ton. I don't see him staying in Detroit. Detroit feels like a rebuild. Obviously, they got rid of Stafford. So he's going to move elsewhere. Don't know where that fit's going to be, but if he's healthy, he's an incredible wide receiver that's going to make someone very, very happy.
Yeah. No, I think he's definitely going to be a big piece to someone's puzzle for this offseason, and I think there's a big opportunity for him to go and make some big things happen for any team that picks him up. So, yes, Kenny Golladay comes in at number 2. Number 1, Trent Williams. And give me 1 second, guys. I think we're having a little bit of a glitch with our chat, so I'm going to actually